President Muhammadu Buhari today finally signed the electoral bill into law, but with reservations, and has asked for amendment. And hopes are still high over the safe return and evacuation of Nigerians living in Ukraine amidst a Russian invasion of that country. We look at the military and civil means or options of evacuation of Nigerians there. Hello everyone and welcome. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Akimbaloye. Apologies for starting the program behind schedule. Then we get started now. No countdown today, and there is a reason. Because now the president has signed the bill into law. We'll get into all of the details that you need to know, how powerful this new law is, how much of help it will be for our elections. Just give me a moment, everyone, because we need to show you some of your political roundup stories.
The President, Muhammadu Buhari, has signed the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2022 into law. The President, who signed the bill at the Council chamber today, notes the improvements in the reworked bill passed by the National Assembly contain provisions that could revolutionize elections in Nigeria through technological innovations. He, however, urges the National Assembly to give speedy amendments to some provisions of concern, particularly an amendment to Section 84, subsection 12, which contravenes the rights of political office holders to vote or be voted for in political party conventions and congresses.
The practical application of Section 84, subsection 12.
Following the signing into law of the Amendment Electoral Act by President Muhammadu Buhari, spokesperson for the Coalition of United Political Parties, Ikenga Ugochinyere Imo, says this action by President Muhammadu Buhari is the best to happen to the nation's electoral system. Commending the president for signing the bill into law, Ugochinyere, speaking to journalists in Owerri, the Imo State capital, noted the advantages contained in the new electoral law as it relates to the nation's electoral system, which cannot be overemphasized, as era of electoral fraud perpetrated by politicians and their cronies will become a thing of the past. He says the decision by the president shows statesmanship and patriotism, which will have positive implications on the electoral system and give Nigerians confidence in the electoral system.
We are talking about a Nigerian president of Southeast extraction, and who must be willing to serve and sieve the odds in order to give this country the best of governance.
A group of young people known as Northern Youth have held a one-day workshop in Kano Metropolis ahead of the 2023 general elections to call for a youth president, as they believe it is a new dawn for Nigerian politics, where the elderly politicians should do more mentoring than taking on political office. At the gathering, they had young people who were into different businesses, civil servants and students of high institutions of learning. They called on a young man, Ibrahim Ladaja, to run for president come 2023.
We believe this is the right time for us to pick a youthful mind.
Commissioners have no complaint.
Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State has reacted with mixed feelings to the signing of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill into law by President Muhammadu Buhari. During a media briefing in Port Harcourt, the governor said although the introduction of electronic transmission of results will reduce killings and electoral fraud in the country, the president's reservations on Section 8412, which deal with the status of political appointees during party conventions and congresses, is selfish. He says the president's reservation indicates that protecting the interest of his appointees is all the while the main reason for not signing the amended bill, and not the initial rejection on the ground of the mode of conducting party primaries.
Mr. President is merely trying to protect some personal interests, which are not made known to the public.
Secretary of the Ministry.
The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Mrs. Sadia Umar Farouk, has launched the Multi-Sectoral Crisis Recovery Project to provide additional funding for the continued support to Borno, Adamawa and Yobe state governments. Speaking at the launch in Abuja, the minister explained that the project will provide humanitarian and long-term economic recovery for the northeast states towards rehabilitation and improving critical infrastructure and livelihood of the people in the region.
Not only by building back better infrastructure, but ensuring that the quality of services provided is raised.
At exactly 25 minutes past 12 today, the 25th day of February 2022, after 25 days of transmitting the electoral bill to President Buhari, he finally signed a document giving birth to a brand new election enabling law for Nigerians. I dare say, congratulations to every Nigerian today, because it means a lot, and that's why I'm congratulating you. You will know in a few moments. Well, in a few minutes ceremony hosted by the President at the Presidential Villa in Abuja, where Senate President and the Speaker of the House were present alongside chairs of the INEC committees in both chambers of the National Assembly were present alongside members of the executive arm of government. The President was presented with a bill which he had first rejected, but he today assented to the reviewed and reworked version sent to him. Let me remind you of what the President said after signing the bill into law.
The Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2022, passed by the National Assembly, forwarded for presidential assent via a letter dated 31st January 2022. In line with established tradition, I received inputs from relevant ministries, departments, and agencies of government after careful and thorough reviews of the bill and its implications to democratic processes in our country. It is gratifying to note that the current bill comes with a great deal of improvement from the previous electoral bill 2021. There are salient and praiseworthy provisions that could positively revolutionize elections in Nigeria through the introduction of new technological innovations. These innovations would guarantee the constitutional rights of citizens to vote and to do so effectively. The bill will also improve and engender clarity, effectiveness, transparency of the election processes, as well as reduce the barriers to the barest minimum incidence of acrimony arising from dissatisfied candidates and political parties.
Wow. The President has given the premise on which he signed the bill, but there is a big but in all of this. The President signed the bill into law, yes, but he has some reservations. He's asking that the act should be amended. Listen to some of his reasons.
Hence, it will be stretching things beyond the constitutional limit to import extraneous restriction into the Constitution on account of practical application of Section 8(4), subsection 12 of the bill, where political parties, conventions, and congresses were to hold earlier than 30 days to the election. Arising from the foregoing, with particular regards to the benefits of the bill, industry, time, resources, and energy committed in its passage, I hereby assent to the bill and request the National Assembly to consider immediate amendments that will bring the bill in tune with constitutionality by way of deleting Section 8(4), subsection 12 accordingly.
Meanwhile, the electoral umpire INEC will be holding an extraordinary meeting of the commission, which is scheduled for tomorrow, Saturday, the 26th February 2022. Thereafter, the commission will probably be releasing a statement on the way forward for the 2023 election, the plans that they have, and the schedule of activities. Well, the commission, in a statement today, says the signing of the bill is historic, being the fourth time since the restoration of democracy in Nigeria in 1999 that the Electoral Act is repealed and reenacted. And it says the newly passed electoral law contains many progressive provisions that will facilitate the conduct of free, fair and credible elections in Nigeria. The new law will now be referred to as the Electoral Act 2022, which replaces effectively the Electoral Act 2010 as amended. The electoral umpire further states that, together with the 1999 Constitution as amended, the new act constitutes the principal law to govern the conduct of future elections, including the 2023 general elections. Meanwhile, the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, has been responding to reacting to President Buhari's assent to the Electoral Act. Take a listen to some of his reservations on the action and the comments of President Buhari.
It will reduce the involvement of security agencies of hijacking materials, ballot boxes, and results. Now, in that case, what it will require is that you need to go and mobilize people. And if a public officer who want to recontest election, it is your performance that will now determine for you. It will not only be paying bribe to INEC, paying bribe to security agencies. So it will now put public officers on their toes to say, look, now that the no longer writing of result as it is always been done, hijacking materials as it has always been done, instead of you to perform, you go to INEC, you go to security agencies, you go to the army, you go to police, you go to SSS, you go to civil defense. Look, I have this amount of money for you, and I want you to escort this to social place, push out the electoral personnel, other personnel, and take them on, let them sign. All right? And it has also provided, from what I have read, under that law, that INEC has the right to reject results that are made under duress.
Governor Nyesom Wike on the signing of electoral law. Now, let's get some perspective to these. It's interesting that the Electoral Act has been signed on a day as this, and interesting thing is that INEC has not been able to release the schedule of activities for the election due to perhaps they're waiting for the law to be signed. Now that has happened, but let's look at some of the issues that are being raised. I'm being joined now by Senator Jeff, a federal lawmaker representing Benue Northwest in the National Assembly. He's here with me in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Senator, for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
And virtually, we have Senator Ajibola Basiru. He's one of those who participated actively in the process of putting the bill together. He's in Oshogbo. He joins us virtually. Thank you so much, Senator, for coming on tonight. Let me get your party, the PDP, has been very critical of the president on the issue of the passage of the Electoral Act. Now that it's been passed, let me get your view on what the president said and how this whole thing panned out.
Well, I join others to congratulate the president for bowing to pressure and signing this bill. He needn't have come to this pass. This is something he should have done, because when the president vetoed the bill last year in December, he brought the reasons why he vetoed the bill. It had to do with, according to him, the restrictive nature of the party primaries, which was restricted to direct primaries. And that was sorted out by the National Assembly. And so we were wondering why it was taking quite some time and getting the nation agitated before he came out to sign today. But he has signed, like you said, and others too said, this is a monumental development in our political development for the president to have signed this. So what I'm wondering is, when the president vetoed the bill last year, did the impulse that he got from the relevant persons that he referred to, did they not point out this section 84 that he is talking about today? You know, it has always been there. It wasn't something that was just fixed by the National Assembly after he returned the bill. It was there. And so it reminds me of what happened in the 8th Assembly when the president rejected this bill once, twice, thrice. The last time he gave the reason that it was too close to an election. So the impression I have is that he would latch at anything not to sign the bill. But now that he has signed it, it is to his glory and the glory of, all of us, that in the quest of our political development, we are taking the right steps. You know, after each election, certain things are noticed in the way the electoral process, panned out. And because of that, we seek to make it a better document. It can never be perfect. And so that which he has highlighted will be looked at. But personally, I'm not one of those who believe that Section 84 contradicts the Constitution. I'm a lawyer, but I have my own different opinion. Okay? What is the mischief that this section seeks to cure? You had a situation in the past where parties will say that, oh, all the aides of the president are automatic delegates. And then, and that person, either the governor, you've had a case in the past in this country that the governor had more than 1,000 aides. And then you make all of them automatic delegates. And so automatically you are putting him, giving him a head start over his competitors, over his rivals, fellow contenders for a particular office. So that for me is part of what that the mischief that was sought to be cured. Yeah. Okay, so they are citing Section 40 and Section 42. Section 40 talks about freedom of association. Section 2 talks about freedom from discrimination. And I think, in my opinion, it's stretching it too far to say that, oh, because let's give an example. You want to join a club. There are rules and regulations. You can't say because you are a Nigerian citizen and Section 40 says you have freedom of association, you go and badge into any association. You have to follow the rules and regulations, okay? And it has to be done in such a way as to give fairness to everybody, a level playing field.
So you don't think that it's ultra-vires? You don't think that it's against the Constitution?
No, personally, I hold a different view. I don't believe so.
Let me, interestingly, your colleague is also a lawyer. Let me ask
who also served on the
committee.
On the committee.
Yeah. So, but the senator is always very proud to say that he holds a PhD in law. Senator Basiru, do you agree with your colleague over the contention that the president raised on Section 84, subsection 12?
Shehu, I think you have this issue with this my PhD in law. I think it's not about being proud. That is reality, of the fact that cannot be wished away. On a very serious note, I think I would say that I'm very happy that Mr. President assented to the Electoral Act, and then we have an act before us that is going to be very impactful in a positive manner towards electoral system in Nigeria. And I would say that it's also good that the president, notwithstanding the reservation he had about Section 84.12, decided to append his signature to the bill to make it law, and then raise issue about what to be done by Section 84, subsection 12. Clearly, Section 84.12 has two subsections. A subsection has to do with a provision barring political appointee from involvement in a convention as being that they are going to be elected in such convention. The implication of that is that in that regard, a person who seeks a political office would not be allowed to do so unless he should have resigned from his office. The second aspect is whether such people, even though they are not delegates in that election, they would
Okay, it does look like there's some technical issue with the
Okay,
connection
I think I'm back.
Senator,
I think I'm back.
There was
I'm
some
back.
kind of glitch earlier on, but you can go ahead.
I think, yeah, what I was saying, what I'm saying is that there are two areas to it. One, whether somebody who is an appointee can participate as a candidate in the convention, and whether he can vote for another candidate in the convention. The position of the law in this regard, I will say, the position of Mr. President, based on existing case law, specifically Shinkafi and Yari, and the case of Akeredolu and INEC, it appears that where a person is qualified by the provision of the Constitution, it cannot be otherwise disqualified under the provision of any other law. Because according to the Supreme Court in those cases, the provision of qualification for political offices are exhaustive, and any other provision seeking to deal with that will to that extent be unconstitutional. But as regards non-elective persons and people who are appointed to be delegates, I don't think that would be correct to say it will be unconstitutional. And just as
Okay, so let's look at this argument. We might drag it for a while because I like to bring out a few issues, but let's look at the positive side.
Yes.
Some of the areas that this law let's highlight those areas that this law will help to empower our electoral process. For you, what gives you joy in this new law as in relation to our elections?
Well, in the process of coming up with this law, you recall that one of the most contentious issues that came up on the floor of the Senate, and I believe in the House too, was the issue of electronic transmission of results. Because it's at the core of a free and fair process of election. You know, I thank God
divided you and your colleagues. I mean, some of your colleagues.
Yeah, for
the House was turned into a rowdy session.
Yes, in my 15-year stay at the National Assembly, that was one of the few times that each member was called upon to stand up and answer his father's name.
And that was the minority leader's motion that it should be called into a vote.
It should be called to, it should divide the House, and everybody, Nigerians knew who voted for what. But I thank God that the pressure from the public, yielded a positive result, because at the end of the day, even those that voted against it came around to agreeing that that was a critical element.
Do you think that moment put a question mark on, I wouldn't want to use the word integrity, but did it put a question mark on the stand of the Senate? Senate, I'm saying not National Assembly, the Senate, because the House had their own issues, but the Senate, because at the end of the day, the Senate made a U-turn on that matter. Did you think that was a major challenge, a question mark on the Senate?
Sure. The beauty of democracy is that, one, we are representatives of the people. Now, we don't have to, on every issue, go back to the people and ask for permission before we come and vote, because the presumption is that they give us the mandate to, on their behalf, take certain decisions. But if in the process of taking decisions, it becomes very loud and clear that the decision we are about to take is against the interests of the people, or they reject such decisions, I mean, I don't think it's lacking integrity to come around to agreeing with what the people, because it was very clear if you listen to people on the radio, in the televisions and on the social media, it was very clear that the people wanted electronic transmission of results. So,
but it does also look at the time that it was a division along party lines.
Yes.
Most of your colleagues in the PDP voted for, and it does look like a large number of members in the Senate in the APC voted against.
Including the chairman of the committee. Okay, so, but let me say that is how democracy works. Even the American system that we copy, they try to toe party line in most instances. They try to toe party instances. But what I'm saying is that at least we thank God that they saw the national interest over and above their party. After they voted party line, they saw that the whole nation was united, that in order to have a free and fair election, a process that is free and fair and acceptable to Nigerians, that was the way to go. So, they could have, because of ego problems, stuck to their position, but they never did. So, for me, they should be applauded rather than see it any other way.
It's interesting. Let me allow Senator Bashiru to, because he's a member of the APC, and also on that day, if you remember, those who are absent, it was obvious, and some constituent members were saying, so my senator was absent. It was not when there was a very critical and a very important vote, my senator was absent. So we knew the senators that were absent, we knew the ones that were present.
In all fairness, just quickly, in all fairness, you know, our work is such that we don't do it just in chamber. Sometimes you are doing oversight, sometimes you are doing
the question
committee
is that
assignment.
sometimes your chambers are all sometimes empty.
Yeah.
And it gives an impression to the public, to those who voted them into office, that look, our lawmakers are not present. And it's difficult to explain that you are somewhere, especially on a day as critical as that. But let me allow Senator Basiru to weigh in. For you, Senator, what gladdens your heart in respect of this law and how it can further or give strength to our elections?
I think the first aspect of it is the recognition of the use of technology. As you know now, for purpose of accreditation, identification and accreditation of voters, the smart card reader is recognized, and any other technological device, which means that any other technology that may come for purpose of aid and verification of voters is going to be allowed under the Electoral Act. This is salutary and will aid our process of transparency in our election. Similarly, the question of transmission of election results after it has been announced at the polling unit will allow for seamless collation and ease of being able to know and determine the election result in a timeous manner. Another significant aspect is the amendment of the grounds of election petition. Hitherto, we see a situation whereby election properly conducted are challenged by some political parties who would not even have any showing at that election by saying that they were excluded from that election. Now, you cannot bring a grant of exclusion to be a basis to nullify an election. On the contrary, you are allowed to come and inspect the ballot paper a period of time before the election, so that if you don't raise any objection, you cannot seek to nullify a properly conducted election on the grant of exclusion of a candidate. Another salutary provision under the Electoral Act is the recognition of accreditation as the basis for determining overvoting. Under the previous 2011 Act, the overvoting is reckoned by regard to the number of voters on the register. The implication of this is that there is always residual number of voters, so it becomes very difficult to really determine overvoting. But now, the number of accredited voters will be what will be used to reckon whether there is overvoting. And the recognition of this will imply that when there is overvoting at any particular polling unit, then the election will be nullified. Another important aspect is also the question of election results that have been declared under duress. This now allows the Independent Electoral Commission to nullify that election without waiting to go to electoral tribunal to be able to do so. Then the recognition of the right of the fiscally challenged is also very important because it allows fiscally challenged people to have access to voters' register.
Let's wrap up this conversation now. I know the likes of Senator Smart Adeyemi will be very happy because he was one of those who stood first against the issue of direct primary. Now, not only that we have direct and indirect, we now have consensus. In the new law. Let's wrap up, and we just have a few seconds to do that. Yeah. For those, I know you are one of those who said that there must be multiplicity of the mode of primary elections. Yeah. But what does this mean for political party organization?
Yeah, I think that's the whole idea of democracy. You open up the space. Initially, the idea of consensus was nebulous, was neither here nor there because people didn't know what people felt that it would play into the hands of those that wanted to control matter. But now it has been specified. And it's not something that you force on somebody. A party could decide that we want direct primaries or we want indirect primaries. But first, you can give, you can try the consensus approach. Option. If it doesn't work, well, you go to some of those. So
we can say consensus is the creation of President Buhari because he was one who muted it at the Channels Television interview.
Okay, yeah.
He said, well, consensus, he was saying the third option.
Yes.
But, I mean, I wish that we can continue, but it's a conversation that will keep going on and on. I would have loved to come back to you, but we are totally out of time. Senator Basiru, if you can do this in 20 seconds, your final thought and your parting shot on this matter.
I think no matter how beautiful the electoral bill is, we need to change our political culture. We should respect the will and aspiration of the people. We should abide by the rules of the game and ensure that the votes of our people count. So there's a need for democratic culture to be interposed into whatever provision we have in the Electoral Act.
All right. Thank you so much, distinguished Senator Ajibra Basiru. I must congratulate you and your colleagues for a very difficult one. We'll put you guys under pressure, but I think it was in the best interest of Nigerians to get this job done. Rid it of the errors, remove all the issues, and now we have a brand new law for our elections. Thank you so much and congratulations. Thank you so much, Senator Akechev. But one thing I know that will be also very important for our election is the Election Offences Commission.
Exactly.
If that happens, it will be a lot of help. I want to appeal to you and your colleagues to make that happen too.
I agree. Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll take a break, everyone. And when we return, we'll be joined by a deputy permanent representative at the United Nations and a retired military officer and a security consultant, Group Captain Sadiq Shehu. They will be talking to me about the options available in getting Nigerians who are trapped in Ukraine out of harm's way and in the face of Russian bullets in that country. Stay with us, everyone. This is a critical conversation. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Things are getting out of hand in Ukraine as Russia pounds more military pressure on that country. Invading Russian forces spreads deep into Ukraine as deadly battles reached the outskirts of Kyiv, with explosions heard in the capital early today. Now, the besieged government described as horrific rocket strikes. The blast in Kyiv set off a second day of violence after Russian President Vladimir Putin defied Western warnings to unleash a full-scale ground invasion and air assault that quickly claimed dozens of lives and displaced at least 100,000 people. Meanwhile, EU leaders have concluded their emergency summit earlier today with an agreement to punish Moscow for its invasion of Ukraine by imposing severe sanctions targeting its financial, energy, and transport sectors. Our major worry here as the people in this country at the moment is getting Nigerians trapped in Ukraine out safely. And also we hope that the escalation stops so the killings of innocent people won't continue. But let's give perspective onto this one and see how much of help those Nigerians in Ukraine can get, especially when the Speaker of the House, February Jabiamila, said yesterday that if there are bottlenecks, they will go to the chairman of Air Peace and ensure that Nigerians are transported. But how easy is that? So we want to get some diplomatic experience and knowledge and also get some military insight into these issues. So I have Group Captain Sadiq Shehu. He's a retired military officer and security consultant. He's here with me in our Abuja studio. And from our Meduguri studio is Ambassador Usman Tariki. He's Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on tonight.
Thank you very much.
Let me begin by asking, you heard what the Speaker, Honorable Bajabiamila, said yesterday. They wanted to get Nigerians back. But with what is happening on the ground, things are really getting messy. How easy and how can we go about it?
Thank you very much. First, I will compliment the Honorable Speaker and members of the National Assembly for showing concern for the flight of our students and other diplomatic staff and even other people that are on their own personal businesses in any of these two countries. However, having said that, I had the Speaker saying that by Friday, I think that's by today, if nothing happens, some members of the Committee on Foreign Defense should leave for Ukraine and by contacting Air Peace and make sure that they come back by Monday with as many students as possible as they can. Well, like I said, it's a good they are showing concern. But the practicality of what the Honorable Speaker said is much to be questioned. For once, we can hear that almost all civil flights over those areas have been postponed, have been suspended. Even neighboring countries like Moldova, and other countries around there, they have stopped flights into those areas. So looking at that, what is the feasibility that if our speakers, our assembly members go there, they will be able to get? First, that statement, with due respect, ignores the complexity of that kind of operation, which in military parlance is called non-combatant evacuation. Now, non-combatant evacuation basically is a diplomatic operation, but it is heavily supported by the military element for different reasons. Yes, Mr. Onyema graciously offered to carry our people when they were challenged in South Africa, and then during the COVID, the COVID incident when it started. However, the problem we have in Ukraine and Russia is a different kettle of fish altogether.
So you can't use a passenger airline the same way we did in South Africa. I mean, has this kind of situation happened before that has faced Nigeria, and how did we handle it?
Good. What will decide the kind of whether you are going to use the military instrument or purely the diplomatic and then the civilian air assets is the nature of the environment. In non-combatant evacuation, you have three kinds of environments. You have the permissive environment. Permissive environment is where the government of the country you are going is supportive of your venture, is in control of the territory, and you are not going to encounter any resistance. If you have that kind of situation, it is best even not to involve the military in that. But the next kind of environment you have is the ambivalent environment, whereby the government of the country is not opposing your operation, but the government itself is not in control of areas we are going to carry out.
Does this look like what is happening right now?
It's something like that.
Ukraine does not, I'm not sure, because Russian forces have entered into the capital from what we understand.
In fact, the situation has even passed from the ambivalent, it has gone to hostile environment. Why is the hostile environment? This is where there is presence of actual fighting in that area. The risk of being, targeted either deliberately or by mistake is high there.
So does our military have the capacity to be able to evacuate in this kind of scenario?
Good. In this kind of scenario, it would have been the military instrument supporting the diplomats to do this operation. Because to be fair to Mr. Onyema, I don't speak for him, even the insurance companies that cover his aircraft, they will think twice about giving him cover insurance to go and fly in an area where there is actual fighting. Now, to the question, this is what I had wanted the National Assembly to do. You see, every bad thing is an opportunity of getting things ready. We do not have right now the capacity of our armed forces to be involved and carry the number of people we have there. But it has not always been like that. Only that we do not learn from history. In 1976, Nigerians were beleaguered in Equatorial Guinea as a result of, problem they had. We had a lot of migrant workers in Equatorial Guinea as of 1970s during the Bristol regime. And then the government was oppressing them. In fact, some of them were being employed in something that is almost like slavery. And then they demanded to come back. By that time, the Nigerian Air Force alone had about 9 C-130 aircraft.
What's the capacity?
The capacity of the C-130, it could carry up to 100 people at once.
That's 90,000.
Yes, and it depends on the configuration. There are different.
Do we have such capacity now?
We do not have. That is
a moment. I'll come back to you. I'm loving the insight, and I want us to Nigerians who are watching right now, so that we know the options available to government. The Nigerian government wants to evacuate. But do we have the capacity? Let's speak to the Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Seriki, who is in our Maiduguri studio. Give us a sense, Ambassador, of what we need to do right now. How complex is the situation? And how can we get Nigerians who are trapped now in Ukraine out of harm's way and safely back on Nigerian soil?
Thank you very much for having me on the program. Nigerians and presumably nationals of many other countries are trapped in Ukraine right now on account of the conflict situation prevailing in that country now. Getting Nigerians out today is a matter of the highest priority. I can imagine that right now in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they would have established a situation room to consider this emergency and develop scenarios about getting Nigerians out of Ukraine. Having said that, it is very, very timely that the National Assembly had shown concern regarding the situation and fate of Nigerians. The first and immediate thing that we should do is to get across to Moscow, that is to our embassy in Moscow, to make a démarche, a diplomatic representation to the belligerent power, that is Russia, to inform them of the existence of Nigerian nationals. And if we have the accurate figure, we can give them to say that this is the number of Nigerians in Ukraine whose welfare, well-being, safety and security are matters of the highest priority to the Nigerian government. We should also convey the same position, the same note to the Russian embassy in Abuja for them to be aware of our concern. And at the same time, I will urge that we should reach the permanent mission of Nigeria in New York and Geneva to deploy or submit the same démarche, the same note to the missions of Russia, so that from all angles, the Russian government will be made aware of the existence of Nigerians and to ensure practically the safety of the Nigerian population there. My other recommendation is for us to reach the International Red Cross and Red Crescent Society in Geneva and their office in Abuja to coordinate the evacuation of our citizens in that country. Nigeria has experience of evacuating Nigerians from other countries. Recently, as late as 2016-17, we went to South Africa to bring Nigerians back at the behest of the National Assembly and the Foreign Affairs Ministry. So we can do it, but right now, as I'm speaking to you, the situation in Ukraine is very fluid, very indeterminate, very chaotic, and uncertain.
Right. Ambassador,
it has been reported
let me jump in quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me jump in quickly and get this insight from you. You're making reference that the Nigerian government should have a diplomatic conversation with Moscow. And that's perhaps going to happen because maybe Nigeria has not opposed on giving a stand against what Russia is doing against Ukraine. And perhaps we'd like to know what is the position or the foreign policy of Nigeria in this kind of situation. We've seen several countries who have spoken against the action Russia is taking against Ukraine. Do we have any policy in that regard?
Well, thank you. In such circumstances, such situations, Nigeria and the African countries will speak in tandem and the African Union. And I think the African Union has issued a statement on behalf of the member states in terms of deploring the situation, particularly the resort to armed force to settle diplomatic incidents or to correct certain perceptions about inadequacies in the relationship between NATO and Russia, or between the US and Russia, or between Ukraine, for that matter, and Russia. So the African Union is quite emphatic, and Nigeria, being part of the African Union, I will assume that that is our position. We are also part of the United Nations, and the United Nations has also called for the respect for the treaty obligations of countries to maintain peace and stability and to refrain from resorting to use of armed force in any circumstance. So I believe that should be the position with regards to Nigeria. But that is an aspiration which sometimes is breached by the realities of real politics. And this is what we are seeing today, unfortunately, where diplomacy has failed, where accommodation has failed, and where real politics is now coming to the fore. And under such circumstances, a country of Nigeria's position, it will be very perilous for us to take sides outside the normative principles that have been established by treaties, by charters and conventions.
All right.
So we cannot go unilaterally.
Ambassador, let me get your parting shot, yourself and group captain here, and it's going to be about the way forward, the solution. Should we be preparing a military alternative, or what do we do right now? Group captain, let me take it from you first.
The solution by way of recommendation, we were caught unprepared for this, whether diplomatically or militarily. Diplomatically, with due respect, the ambassador mentioned we should tell the Russians, actually, if we have the numbers. I think it should become a standard operational procedure for all our embassies to always ensure they have an updated list of Nigerians that are in their country. I know some Nigerians don't register when they enter a country, but again, it's a two-way thing. Right. But the embassy should try and do that. Secondly, we should have a plan, because right now, we do not have any national policy on this kind of evacuation. That's why you hear the speaker saying people should go. So there should be a policy. Right. Our military should be equipped for sea, naval airlift and airlift capacity for them to go wherever our citizens are.
Let me get Ambassador's parting shot. Ambassador, just in 30 seconds, what is your option or solution that you'll be preferring tonight for Nigerian government?
I'm so sorry. My earphone is failing me. I didn't hear you well. Can you repeat the question, please?
So I'm saying that if you can, in 30 seconds, Ambassador, if in 30 seconds you can give us your parting shot on the way forward, the solution.
Well, we cannot resolve the Ukraine-Russia situation, but in terms of the safety of Nigerians, we should be in touch with our embassy in Kiev to update us about the situation. They must have information from the Nigerian Association there to keep tabs and hope for the best. But honestly, there is very little option left to us now until peace returns to that country.
Thank you so much. We do wish our brothers and sisters who are trapped there safety to return back home. Thank you so much, Ambassador and Good Captain. Thank you so much for coming. That's our show for tonight. I run out of the studio because totally out of time. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. Bye for now.